Hey everyone, I'm Dan Sege from Hydro Ottawa, and I'll be hosting the ThinkEnergy podcast. So here's today's big question. Are you looking to better understand the fast-changing world of energy? Join me every 2 weeks and get a unique perspective from industry leaders as we deep dive and discuss some of the coolest trends, emerging technologies, and latest innovations that drive the energy sector. So stay tuned as we explore some traditional and some quirky facets of this industry. This is the ThinkEnergy podcast. Hey everyone, welcome to the ThinkEnergy podcast. Have you ever dreamed of a day where your car drives itself? I'm not talking about Herbie the Love Bug or Stephen King's possessed 1958 Plymouth Christine, where your car has a mind of its own per se, but rather an internet-connected automobile capable of sensing its environment and moving safely with little or no human input. With Canadians spending 11 million hours a year stuck in traffic, it's certainly attractive to use your commute time for better things like reading, catching up on emails, watching a movie, or perhaps sleeping rather than focusing on the road ahead. Well, self-driving cars are finally here, and how they are deployed will change how we get around forever. From Tesla to Google to Uber, nearly all major automakers are testing connected autonomous vehicles, AV, today. Autonomous vehicles also present many other benefits, including improved road safety. Last year alone, there were more than 1,800 road fatalities in Canada, and over 90% of those crashes were caused by human error. According to a new study released by the Energy Information Administration, by 2050, connected autonomous vehicles could reduce fuel consumption by as much as 44% for passenger vehicles and 18% for trucks. Transportation has a big impact on our lives and our world. Many feel that autonomous vehicles will use roads more efficiently than traditional cars. Imagine each vehicle perfectly spaced on the road, which could reduce traffic jams. Now imagine how Herbie or Christine would deal with a traffic jam on the 401. See the difference? Today on the show, I have Raed Kadri, head of Ontario's Autonomous Vehicle Innovation Network and an authority on the subject of autonomous vehicles. Welcome to the ThinkEnergy podcast, Raed. So maybe you could start by providing us with a quick snapshot on who you are and what you do.
Great. Thanks for having me, Dan. I really appreciate it. I'm Raed Kadri. I work with the Ontario Centres of Excellence, OCE. And as part of that organization, I head up what's called the Autonomous Vehicle Innovation Network. That's the Ontario government's initiative for the future of not only our automotive sector, but our transportation sector. So essentially, Ontario being a hotbed for automotive technology, as we all know, and a very big part of our economy, as well, along with the manufacturing and production of those vehicles, Ontario is a substantial contributor to the supply, the parts and the other technologies that go in the vehicles globally. And so because of that, we have a massive cluster of automotive that happens in our province, and is a big job creator in our province. And the sector is changing, as we all know. The auto sector is it's transforming with the introduction of technology, increased technology into vehicles. And then also the way people and goods move to and from places is changing, as again with that introduction of technology. And they're starting to integrate a bit. So most automotive companies are calling themselves mobility companies now. And so along with all of that that's happening, and us having a substantial automotive presence globally, and being one of those leading jurisdictions, but also us having a fairly substantial IT cluster, as well as a small and medium-sized entrepreneurial activity and ecosystem in Ontario. We've got all the right ingredients. And so AVIN, the Autonomous Vehicle Innovation Network, is the Ontario government's push to ensure that we maintain our leadership, and is actually firmly embedded in the government's 10-year plan for the auto sector. It's called Driving Prosperity, and so AVEN is part of the tactics that the government is utilizing in that plan. And so that's a little bit about what I do. OCE ensures success for working with the government of Ontario, ensures that AVEN is successful in meeting the government's objectives with the initiative.
Cars on the road today have a variety of driver assistance safety features that are changing the way we drive. There's adaptive cruise control, forward collision warning, auto emergency braking, parallel parking, and finally, no human intervention. Are you able to provide our listeners with levels of autonomous driving?
Absolutely. I mean, there more at a high level. There's definitely more detail available and more information available if you look into it. Essentially, most of the world uses the SAE levels of automation, and there's 6 of them, from 0 to 5 inclusive. And so, as level 0 is no automation, zero automation in the vehicle, and essentially all driving tasks are performed by the driver. So after that, there's level 1, which is driver assistance system. So a lot of the technologies that you mentioned there, as SAE describes it, is level 1 automation in their scale. And so that includes things like lane keep assist and other technologies that support the driver in operating the vehicle. And then after that, there's level 2. Level 2 is partial automation. And so if you go back to SAE and the way they describe it in their scale, level 2 partial automation includes things that are, the best examples to give are things that are commercially available, are things like Cadillac's Super Cruise or Tesla's Autopilot. Those would be examples of level 2 partial automation as per SAE's scale. Then you go on to level 3 conditional automation, where you start to see, as per SAE's description, you start to see an increase in automation, and the vehicle starts to be able to also scan its environment and provide feedback to the driver about its environment, and ask the driver to intervene in certain cases when the vehicle is able to perceive different things in its environment. And then if you keep going down, SAE describes level 4 as high automation. So an increased level of automation, the vehicle is doing more in supporting the driver in the function and task. And then SAE describes level 5 as full automation. And level 5 full automation SAE is essentially what people speak about when people say autonomous vehicles, self-driving cars. They're thinking about the end. And so oftentimes you have to kind of ask, what do you mean when you say autonomous vehicles? Because people aren't actually telling you which level that they're talking about, and oftentimes they're talking about level 5 full automation, which includes a whole bunch of other things in the environment as opposed to just the vehicle technology itself. And so those are the 6 levels of automation as per SAE.
Big picture, Raed. What are some of the benefits, if you want, from gravitating to connected and autonomous vehicles?
I think the major driver is the potential for increased safety. If you look at essentially what everybody's aiming to get out of the technology is an increased level of safety for all, I guess, road users, and essentially that's very important to people who are driving, to people who are regulating, and safety is paramount. And so the first thing and the number one thing that people are trying to achieve is the promise of increased safety as a result of these technologies. If you look at things like ADAS, advanced driver assistance systems, is the fact that the vehicle and the sensors are perceiving something that you may not have perceived, and they're warning you, and so it's able to help you hopefully mitigate something in advance of it occurring. Safety is the key, and what at the high level, what everybody's hoping to achieve from all of this. But once the technology is there, there's a whole wide range of things that can also be achieved as a secondary piece of this, and this is where people are looking at it, is increased efficiency, is productivity, is better flow, better understanding of the traffic system, better understanding of the users of the vehicles in such a way where of course keeping security and privacy paramount. But there's other things that, or it may even be a technology that may in terms of like may allow the more convenience for the user, but safety is the main driver for these technologies across the board.
Okay, thanks. Uber's self-driving cars will soon be jockeying for space on the streets of Washington, D.C., with their ride-hailing company announcing it will begin collecting data to support the development of its fleet of autonomous vehicles. The vehicles will not be operating in autonomous mode, though. They will instead be operating by human drivers to start out, collecting, mapping data, and capturing driver scenarios, which Uber engineers will then reproduce in simulation. How close are we to seeing driverless vehicles, whether we're talking about the actual level 3 or level 4?
Yeah, so if you're talking about the higher levels of automation, it's hard to determine. I think there's as you mentioned, there's a whole number of different steps and scenarios and development and discussions and considerations that need to be made, and so it's really hard to predict when, for example, you'll see different levels of automation, because it is a process. It is incremental. There are a whole number of steps that need to happen. There's a whole bunch of testing that needs to happen. There's a whole bunch of piloting that needs to happen. And so, you used Uber as one example, but a number of companies are also doing similar things where they're mapping, they're testing, they're simulating to better understand how to get incrementally closer to another step of automation. And so it's a process, and it's very hard to forecast exactly when. Anybody can kind of put out a number, but it will come with a whole number of things, not only technology, not only testing, but also discussion about different topics and issues that we need to work out as we move closer to the higher levels of automation. So, there was a number a few years ago where a number of people came out and said, it's coming fairly soon. Again, going back to the level of automation, I'm not sure it was clearly there, but it's important to note that it's a process and it's incremental, and there's a whole number of considerations that need to occur as we move closer.
Okay. I'd love to talk to you about connectivity, Raed. Any thoughts on the impact of the 5G network combined with the Internet of Things on autonomous vehicles? How essential is the right infrastructure and technology to support autonomous cars on our streets?
That's a really good question. As you know, a lot of the technology that's coming out is being used for a whole number of things. IoT devices. You can look at a vehicle now as a collection of IoT devices. It's becoming more and more like that. It's being more embedded in technology, becoming more digital, and so as a result, connectivity is paramount in terms of vehicle operations. I mean, the notion of 5G is being said that it will enable higher levels of automation. There's different opinions on that, but in general, the technology is going to be important for a number of things, and one of the biggest use cases for 5G is transportation vehicles and other modes of transportation, because of the mission critical connection that needs to be maintained as a vehicle. If a vehicle is attached to the network and is using the network for its to support its operations, the notion is that the technology that 5G will bring in will provide a clearer connection and I guess less gaps in connection that will enable the vehicle, if a vehicle is utilizing the network for operation. So that the notion of CV to X is where oftentimes people say that it will require 5G in order to properly operate. But there's other scenarios where not even just the vehicle operation is a part of that. If you look at in general inside the vehicle in terms of if it's providing some sort of outside like the infotainment system to the vehicle, they look at 5G as being part of that as well too. I think that, but the priority is more, again, if you look at it as safety. A lot of people are looking at 5G as being a part of a vehicle's, if it's supporting a vehicle's operation, if the network is supporting a vehicle's operation, they look at 5G as being the technology to support that. And just to note, when you talk about IoT devices and increased, I guess, use of data, flow of data with IoT devices, which would be the use cases for 5G. You look at Ontario. Ontario, working with Quebec and the government of Canada, launched a pre-commercial and a number of large companies launched a pre-commercial 5G network to support the development of new technologies and new devices on that network, in hopes that that as the network becomes commercially viable, we have a whole number of small and medium-sized enterprises in Ontario that are delivering technologies and solutions that utilize that network. And so that initiative is called Encore. And it's the government's initiative to build out small and medium-sized enterprises that have 5G solutions for when the network's commercially viable that can be exported globally.
Okay. Hoping you can shed some light here on the following. Are urban transportation officials planning for a future with fewer private cars? How will this transition from individual car ownership to autonomous fleets impact our cities? Will we see an increase in overall efficiency of transportation and infrastructure?
Yeah, so I think everybody's looking at not necessarily like autonomous vehicles, but the technology that's being utilized there. I'll give you a really good example. When oftentimes people use the word autonomous vehicles as a catch-all for all of the technologies that will support the movement of people and goods more safely, efficiently, and productively. And there's a whole number of different technologies, and actually very good for us, built in Ontario, made in Ontario solutions that are being developed that are supporting public transit. And those are the types of things that I think will create more fluidity, more safety, more productivity in the network. So I'll use a very good example that's publicly available is Pantonium. Pantonium's is actually working with the city of Belleville. They've done a pilot, and they're continuing to work with the city of Belleville. And they have a solution that creates on-demand transit. And so what that does is it allows the current infrastructure, but current equipment that's being used in the transit system to go further and be more responsive to the users, and then in turn creating more efficiency and then more use of public transit. So there's a whole number of very great results from the pilot that they garnered with the city of Belleville. And that's just another example of, I guess, officials looking at how technology and how solutions, and especially made in Ontario solutions, can be used to create more safety, more productivity in the transit system. But again, when you look at all of this, there's a lot of different solutions, and it may not be sensors. It could be software. It could be a mix of software being linked to IoT devices. It could be use of network. It could be use of other different pieces of infrastructure or hardware. But essentially, there's a whole bunch of different technologies or solutions or products that are being developed that will create a better use of the transit system. And I guess more productivity in general, and that's what I think is part of the aim. Is if I talked about safety being priority, the next one is productivity and efficiency, and I think you see a lot of solutions that are doing that. And you can look around, and there's a whole bunch of different examples that are being developed in Ontario that serve also in the transit system as well.
As mentioned earlier in my intro, driver behavior is a leading contributing factor in vehicle collisions. While autonomous vehicles aren't perfect, experts agree they will be much better than humans at safely following all the rules of the road. However, until the fully autonomous vehicles are on the roads, humans still need to be fully responsible for driving their vehicles and understand the limitations of any technology in their cars. How do you teach self-driving cars to watch for unpredictable humans? How do autonomous vehicles learn from their environment? Can I assume they are leveraging AI?
If we go back to the purpose of increased technology and these solutions being embedded into vehicles and the infrastructure around them, is safety is a priority. And so the notion, or the what is being predicted or projected, is that these technologies and solutions will help the driver better perceive things in advance of them occurring, and so that the driver can help mitigate it. And then as higher levels of automation, the concept is that with higher levels of automation, the vehicle will be able to start to also mitigate some of the risks based on its perception that there's things that are happening in advance of them happening. So again, if you go back to the purpose for all of this, is increased safety. And if you look at the vehicle and these technologies as increasing the perception of the driver in the interim, it will help the driver to mitigate any risks. But then, as you see more and more, it may help the vehicle may also support the driver by also taking action to help mitigate the risk. And that's kind of the concept that's being pushed, and why are these technologies being developed to support is increased safety. And those are the types of things that these solutions are meant or being projected to support, is helping to mitigate things in advance by increased or increased perception.
To obtain that social license, how are you building awareness and earning public trust around autonomous vehicle technology?
Public perception and public awareness of all of these technologies and solutions, not on the full AV level. And again, going back to oftentimes the word AV or autonomous vehicles is used to catch all of the technologies that are being used to support safer, more efficient, and more productive movement of people and goods to and from places. It's good to highlight the technologies other than what people often hear about is autonomous vehicles. But you mentioned it. There's connectivity, increased connectivity, and what those different technologies may mean to an individual. We use the example of public transit and how technology solutions, IoT devices, and software has been applied to support safer, more efficient transit. And so, I guess it's key in terms of public education to really talk about the technologies that are out there and how they're helping out right now. And it's also important to note that it's an incremental process. And throughout the incremental process, not only is it technology, but there's much discussion that will and needs to happen as we move closer and closer to that. So I think the key is highlighting to people, and we're doing this about all of the great solutions that are incremental, that are actually supporting the space of increased, the increased use of technology to move people and goods safely and more efficiently.
Raed, wondering if you can speak to how the province of Ontario harnesses talents and resources for connected and autonomous vehicle technologies. Also, how will growth in the use of autonomous vehicles amplify demand for workers with computer science and engineering skills? Is there a gap as we speak?
Yeah, so I think it's talent is paramount for any jurisdiction in general. Ontario is ripe with fantastic post-secondary institutions, top-notch, top-tier post-secondary institutions. We're lucky to have that. We're lucky to have leading researchers. We're lucky to have high-quality talent that's being produced from our post-secondary institutions. And oftentimes people look to Ontario because of that. We talk to other jurisdictions, you talk to companies, they're aware of our talent and of how good our talent is. And so everybody recognizes that. And it's super important as we move forward in any space, especially the future of the automotive and transportation sector, connected and autonomous vehicles. So if you look at what the government has is through AVEN, they have talent, the talent development stream, the Talent Edge, to support the transition from school to work of those highly qualified individuals, so that they can support small and medium-sized enterprises in Ontario to build technology. So we get multiple benefits from that program. Not only do we help our talent transition from school to work, our talent is supporting companies building up new technologies and solutions for the global market in our province, made in Ontario solutions, and they're helping build those companies up. So we get multiple opportunities through that. And Ontario, again, going back to, we're lucky. We've got, like I said, top tier post-secondary institutions that people look to and say globally and say, wow, these are great institutions, and we have leading researchers, and we have these students that are going off and they're working in our small and medium-sized enterprises, and they're building them up, and the world is noticing. And I think that's something that Ontario definitely, along with a number of things, has bragging rights about.
What does the IT infrastructure look like to support these efforts now and for the future?
That's a really good question. It's going to be so municipalities are in charge of their municipal transit for the most part, unless there's one that I don't know about that doesn't. And I will say that there's a lot of eagerness from municipalities to look at what these technologies and solutions look like and what needs to happen in order to prepare. Again, everybody's is looking to garner the benefit of safety and productivity and efficiency from these solutions, and again, incremental solutions. I don't want when I speak about these technologies, I mean incrementally, not the kind of the level 5 that everybody is doing, but there's incremental stages, and there's other technologies outside of just the automation of vehicles that are being utilized here. And so, we across Ontario, we have a number of municipalities that are getting engaged to understand better what these technology solutions that are available now, and I guess in the short term, can do to support their transit and other road usage in their municipality and their regions. And so, if you look at, we go back to the regional technology development sites through AVEN, there's a number of municipalities that are engaged on that. And big part of that is so not only to support the regional cluster in regional economic development and growth, but it's also to better understand what are the technologies that are coming out from these innovative small and medium-sized enterprises in Ontario. What are these made in Ontario solutions that are being developed, so they could potentially support in the testing and the piloting of those solutions. But that also supports municipalities and regions to better understand the technologies that they may be able to adopt when they're commercially available, so that they can garner some of the benefits that are promised as a result of technology being embedded in the movement of people and goods. So I would say to you that there's a role to play, and I think that we're lucky that everybody's excited to see how they can utilize this to garner the opportunity that's provided. In terms of IT infrastructure, it's dependent on what the solution is and what's being rolled out, and so there's a whole number of things. I think you talked about networks are likely important in the future of that. There's a whole wide range of different IT infrastructure that could be adopted, but I think it's going to be important based on the technology that's being adopted to understand better what's going to be supported. A lot of these technologies are in development, testing, and piloting, and I think through that we learn quite a bit of different things, as well as what's required to have them operate once they're commercially available.
So Raed, here's my last question. What keeps you up at night?
All the opportunity. And I'll tell you what I mean. Ontario is a leader in the auto sector. We are the second largest IT cluster in North America. We've got companies and innovative entrepreneurs that are building new technologies, and they're starting new ventures. And the world is looking at Ontario and recognizing what we have. In general, around the tech sector, in general, around the startup and small and medium-sized enterprise, cluster of technology companies. But even more so, if you kind of drill down into the automotive and transportation or mobility sector in space, we're ripe to take the lead on that. We have been, and we can continue to do that. And we continue to drive forward in this space. And we're lucky to have new made in Ontario solutions being developed constantly, new ventures being created, new technology being commercialized from post-secondary institutions across our province that are going and being developed in partnership with global companies, with customers that are saying, we want this. An Ontario company, an Ontario small, medium-sized enterprise has what we need globally to supply customer demand writ large. And so if you look at Avon and what the province has done there, there's a number of partnerships that have been put together where you have a post-secondary institution that's commercialized IP into or a researcher's commercialized IP into a new venture that's made in Ontario, that's embedded in Ontario, and partnered with a customer that's a global leader in this space. That customer has said to them, you have the technology that we feel is part of the offering that we want to give to our customers, and we know our customers. And so they're now supporting an Ontario company to develop that technology, working with them in Ontario to grow that company and help that company scale globally through them into their supply chain. And so those are the opportunities that we as Ontario, and there's many more, I'm giving a very broad example, but there's many more across a broad spectrum of technology that will be, that people are looking for in this space, that we as Ontario are able to provide to the world. And so that's the opportunity, and we just keep going at it, and we're going to continue to go at it. And I think as you look globally, everybody's looking at Ontario and saying, wow, they've got great solutions. They've got great talent. They've got great support in terms of government, in terms of regulations. So the opportunity is there, and we have it. It's ours, and we continue to lead. What through Avon, Ontario is recognized as a leading jurisdiction in this space. Other jurisdictions are looking at us saying, how are you doing what you're doing? And we're saying, well, we've got what it takes to do this. And so the opportunity is really what I guess keeps me up in terms of there's so much of it, and we need to capture it and continue to drive forward.
Again, thank you for joining me today. If someone wanted to reach out to you, how could they connect?
Absolutely. You could find me on LinkedIn. I'm fairly active on LinkedIn. Of course, my email is available on our website, and you can find me through that. I'm always happy to connect and chat more with others. Like I said, I'm fairly active on LinkedIn. I get a number of messages, and I'm always happy to have a chat with folks on a whole wide range of topics wherever I can help out.
Raed, I hope you had a lot of fun. Thank you very much. Thank you for joining us today. I truly hope you enjoyed this episode of the ThinkEnergy podcast. For past episodes, make sure you visit our website, hydroottawa.com/podcast. Lastly, if you found value in this podcast, be sure to subscribe. Anyway, this podcast is a wrap. Cheers, everyone.